In this video, I'm going to talk a little bit about finding sources for your Wikipedia assignment. And I'll apologize in advance, it's very windy outside, so there might be some background noise. In this, I'm going to rely heavily on this document you can see in the background that's called Wikipedia Project Detailed Instructions. You can find that on Blackboard in the Wikipedia folder for our course. I'm going to switch over to that now. And in this document, you can start by seeing a summary of the assignment, describing what exactly you need to include in your Wikipedia article. Basically, you need a few things. You will need to talk about the physical traits of the plant. I assume that you all are covering a specific species or possibly a genus. You also should talk a little bit about the plant's habitat and its distribution, so on what continents does it occur and possibly where on those continents. If you can find information about the plant's invasiveness or conservation status, you should include that. So for example, is this plant rare or common? Is it introduced outside of its native range? If so, then is it a problematic invasive or is it just sporadic? As possible, you should also address the plant's cultural or commercial uses. So what is it used for? The general term for this is economic botany. Now, not all plants are going to have a use, and not all plants will have information about invasiveness or conservation. So if you can't cover one of these articles, just let me know that and then spend more time covering the other topics. Remember that you need to have citations to multiple high-quality sources throughout your assignment. The largest topic that you'll need to cover is a description of the species. So what are the characteristics that somebody would look for in order to identify this plant? And you will need high-quality sources for this topic. If you are working on a plant that occurs in the Carolinas, then one of your sources may be your textbook, Radford Ollies and Bell, Flora of the Carolinas. And you don't have this on paper right now, but you do have a digital copy of this that Professor Smoke provided you a link to, so you will be able to access this resource. Another important set of resources to consult are national or regional flora. And you may find these indexed together by looking for eFloras. One way of getting there is simply by Googling the term eFlora, and it will be one of your first few hits. You could also follow this link here. I will switch over now so we can look at this. So here we are at Google, and all you need to do is type in eFloras. And your first hit will be efloras.org, and you may visit that. Up in this upper right window, you can see a search window, and if you click Advanced, you can see advanced options. For the sake of this example, I am going to focus on the species Roripa sessiliflora. This is in Brassicaceae, and I found this simply by thumbing through Radford Ollies and Bell and looking up species names on Wikipedia until I found one that had a stub but no article. And so having chosen this species, the first thing I want to do is find something about its description. Of course, there's a description in Radford Ollies and Bell, and that will be one of the sources I use. But to find a second source, let's check and see what eFloras has. So I've already typed this in, so that's why it's in my drop-down list here. I'm simply going to select it and hit search, and I'm seeing it come up twice. It's in FLMO Volume 2 as well as FNA Volume 7. I'm not sure what FLMO Volume 2 is, and so we can check that. It turns out to be the flora of Missouri, and FNA Volume 7 refers to the flora of North America. And these will have overlapping information, but it will not necessarily be the same, so we can check both. So let's start by seeing what the flora of Missouri says. There is a description of the authority, and the authority is complicated here, as well as a short description of the plant. And so you can see it says that this is a sessile-flowered cress, or common names are sessile-flowered cress, marsh cress, and yellow cress, and that it is native to Missouri. So already we have some information there. We can click on the flora of North America to get a distribution map, and we can see, you could describe this. It appears to occur in the eastern Midwest and the southeastern United States, as well as northern states, as far north as Wisconsin. What are these states? Illinois, Ohio, and Maryland, as well as south. Plus, there appears to be a population in Massachusetts. So you've got some information here. We can also look at an illustration. And I'm going to check and see what the copyright is on this illustration. And I just clicked a few times to get to the copyright. Unfortunately, it looks like these images are copyrighted by a couple of different sources, which means that we cannot use them just to copy into our Wikipedia article. So let's go back to the Flora of Missouri page, and we looked at the distribution map and the illustration. Let's see what else we can find. Looking down in this lower window, related links, we can see a link to the Flora of North America itself. If we follow this link, we see a much more complete description telling us about the plant's characteristics. And so this is information that you could use in combination with Radford, Allies, and Bell to write a description of the plant. Remember that you cannot copy and paste this because the information is copyrighted in this form. So even though this is botanical terminology, you do need to paraphrase. Part of that is simply going to be choosing important characteristics, not trying to describe every characteristic they have here. You can also see some information about the flowering time that you could include as well. And then there's a little bit more information about the characteristics here. Let's go on and look for some other sources. Down at the bottom, we still see related links, and we can look at www.tropicos. Okay, that link is not working. And we can look at IPNI, and I'm afraid, that link did not work, but we could try searching for the name of the plant here to see if we can get some additional information. And so we can get a couple of links. And here at least we're finding some nomenclatural information about the plant. So it looks like for this species, the Flora of North America is the most useful source. Let's imagine you do use Flora of North America as a source. You will then have to cite it. So citing the flora is a little bit difficult. The easiest way to do it is by noticing that this is Flora of North America, Volume 7. Open up a new Google window and just type citation Flora North America, Volume 7. And you will find a few different links. And let's look at the first one, how to cite FNA Flora of North America. And if we want to cite the flora as a whole, then you may do so using the information provided right here. So we've looked at one source then, the Flora of North America, and some other e-floras. Let's move on and look at some other sources too. The next thing that we'll look at is USDA Plants. To get there, just open Google or another browser and type in USDA Plants. Click on the first link, and from here you can find a window to type in a scientific or common name. I will paste in Raripa sessiflora and click Go. and I can find out a bunch of information. So here we can find out things like it's a dicot in the Brassicaceae, it's an annual, and that it is native to the lower 48 of the United States. Scrolling down, we can see a similar map to what we saw in the flora of North America. And if it was introduced somewhere within the United States, we could see that in different colors down here, for example, the blue or light blue. You can also implicitly see where it's absent by areas in white. If we scroll back up, we can find some more information. Clicking on characteristics, we will get categorical information for things like the foliage color, the flower color, and when this plant grows. This is not as in-depth information as the flora of North America, but you might pick up some new information. Scrolling down, we can find out a little bit about habitat. So it seems to tolerate a wide range of soils from fine through coarse. It tolerates anaerobic conditions. You can see that it prefers slightly acidic to neutral pHs. And as you scroll through, you can find out a variety of other information about it. You will have to decide whether this information is important for a summary on Wikipedia and what you can omit. You probably do not want to include this all. You can also look down here to see if there are known uses. So for example, if this was used for animal fodder, it would say yes. And what you can see from a quick look here is that this species is not economically important according to the USDA. That is information that you could cite. Of course, you would have to link then to the USDA page. Returning to our tabs, we can look at classification on the USDA page, and we can see everything from its class, order, family, and genus. If you click on synonyms, you can see other scientific names it's had in the past. So this has been called Nasturtium sessiliflorum. That might be useful information for your readers, and also Radicula sessiliflora. Let's go across now to the wetland tab, and we can see that in various different regions of North America, this gets the designation OBL for its wetland status. Now, we probably don't have these memorized, so click on Interpreting Wetland Status and scroll down, and you will find this table, which shows you that OBL means this is an obligate wetland species. In other words, it's a hydrophyte. It almost always occurs in wetlands. This would be useful information to provide to your reader. Let's go back, and we also can look at related links. Here we can find a bunch of pages that are linked out from USDA, and you can go through and see if any of these are useful. The last USDA page I want to look at is images here. This is a USDA repository of images. The nice thing about that is that the USDA is a US government website. As such, these images should not be copyrighted, or at least they should be shareable. And so this first image is not brilliant, but we could click on usage requirements to find out. So here's how you could cite this reference. It is not required apparently. It's freely usable for any purpose, but they do ask you to credit. And so you would copy that image and then use the provided citation. Let's go back to our images, and you can see there are several more. So you can get high quality sketches of the plant here too, again with the references provided. I've now switched back to our Wikipedia project detailed instructions to show you the next possible place you could look for materials, you can go to the USC Library Catalog and look for floras in the ebook collection. I will warn you that I've had only limited success with this. And so to do that, you could follow this link. When you do it, then you will want to use the term flora or field guide in the title. And you will also want to put in some geographical delimiters, for example, Carolina with an asterisk, or United States as other words in the title. You may then be able to find floras for whatever region you're working on. This might be useful, especially if you are working outside of the United States, where the USDA does not have information, and where it's not in Radford, Ollie's, and Bell. I'm going to move on because, as I said, I've tried this and I've had only limited success looking for e-floras on the USC Library Catalog. Let me add upstate here. So the next place I would look is Web of Science, and I will switch there now. So from the university library website, I went to Networked Electronic Resources and then Web of Science. And here I can write in the name of the species. Oops. So Rippa sessile flora. And I find no records. So the next step would be to back out and search for Rippa, but we're going to want to do this as an advanced search. So I'm going to use my field tags and say TS equals Rippa sessile flora and TS equals, and then we will put in terms related to botany and taxonomy. So we can look for the term monograph, because monographs tend to be long works that describe species. We can also look for systematic and phylogenetic. We'll put in taxonomic. Again, using wildcards where words might be shortened in different ways. Now if we search, Web of Science is taking its sweet time. I will pause till it's done. And I see that I was not careful with my Boolean operators. I should be connecting the words in the second part with ors, because it needs to have any one of those words, not all of them. So let's try searching again. Unfortunately, still nothing. So we can take out the word sessile flora and just search for the genus. And then we do get some hits. So we see there's 29 hits here. And for these, we can go through and see what looks relevant. I might search by time cited. And when you see one that looks like it might be relevant, we can look for Rippa being mentioned and to see if there's going to be something relevant. This first article looks like it could be useful. It describes the molecular phylogenetics of several Brassicaceae genera, including Rippa. And so we would have to go to this article to see if it talks about Rippa sessile flora specifically. If it did, it could tell us something about relationships that we might want to mention. Unfortunately, I did go ahead and find this article, and it talks about other species, not the one that we are working on. So I'm going to move on to our next strategy. Our next search strategy will be going to Google Scholar. So just open Google and search for Google Scholar. Click the first link. And you can type in your species name. And you'll see here that I get several relevant links. So we have this first one, taxonomy and distribution of the genus Rippa cruciferae. That's another name for Brassicaceae in North America by Stuckey. And this is a JSTOR article, so you could get to it. A checklist of Florida cruciferae. You can see that this mentions Rippa sessiflora specifically. and you could continue scrolling through looking for relevant links. And again, the nice thing is you can see that these articles do refer specifically to this species, not just to the genus generally. And so this will give you a wealth of information. I am back now on our Wikipedia project detailed instructions page, and we have now talked about several different places you can look for information on your species. We looked at eFloras. We looked at the library catalog, looking specifically for ebooks or e-journals. We talked about searching Web of Science, and then we saw that Google Scholar also has a lot of helpful links. You can go and search JSTOR directly as well. I would start with Web of Science and Google Scholar because both are broader links. JSTOR only indexes a limited number of journals. We need to talk a little bit about finding photos and other images of your species. And we saw already that one way of doing this is by searching USDA Plants, and we found several useful images for Raripa sessiliflora. However, your plant might not occur in the United States, in which case USDA Plants will not be helpful. So I will suggest two other strategies. One is to look at IDigBio, and you could just type IDigBio into Google, or you could follow the hyperlink I have here. When you follow this link, you will end up on this landing page. And IDigBio is a repository. It stands for Integrated Digitized Biocollections. So this is a repository of images and locations of where plants and other organisms have been found worldwide. You can see that there's an especially high density of sampling from North America, Europe, and Australia, but reasonable sampling across the entire globe. And so here, if what we're looking for are images of our plant, we can type the plant name in. I hope I spelled that correctly. And we're looking for images. So let's specify that it must have media. Before I click this box, you can see by zooming in on North America that the species is fairly widely reported. You can see it occurs mostly in this Midwest area, but also throughout the South and Southeastern United States. This is not as complete of a map as what you got from USDA Plants, because there are many plants that might occur, for example, in South Carolina, but have not had an imaged collection uploaded to this database. So this is not the definitive map of the species distribution. At any rate, what we're looking for are images. So we've entered the species name. Let's click this box that says must have media. Now all of the dots that appear are ones that have some sort of image associated with it. You can also see that not all of these points actually represent Raripa sessiliflora. Some of these are going to represent species that were collected, and there was some note with that collection that says Raripa sessiliflora was also present in the area. So you could go through and use the color coding here to find specimens that are actually this species, or you can just scroll down to the list and you can see the family and scientific name of what was being described. So for example, this Betula nigra might have a description that says with Raripa growing underneath it, but that's not helpful for us. If you keep scrolling down, eventually we'll get to Raripa sessiliflora, and some of them include the authority, some don't. That doesn't really matter to us. Over to the right, you're going to see view, and here you can actually view the images. So I will just choose one arbitrarily, and here it is. We can see where it was collected, and we can see the media that goes with it. And so this is an image of the plant. We can click on it to get a larger image, and we can click on that to get an even higher quality image, although this might be getting a little bit big for what we need for our purposes. Coming back to here, we need to check the copyright. And so you can see some links on the right, or you can just scroll down. And so we can find out a bunch of information, like the image should be credited to the New York Botanic Garden. Here is a hyperlink to this image, and we need to check the copyright. So that's described in rights in this link. And if we click on that, we see that this is CC 4.0. And what does that mean? You are free to copy and redistribute the material in any medium or format. We are allowed to remix, transform, etc. So we just need to make sure we give attribution. So we need to say where this photo came from, and we are not allowed to add additional restrictions. So that means that we could use this image on Wikipedia if we wanted to. I'm not sure that this specific one that we clicked on is the most exciting image. The flowers aren't very clear. I would probably look for one that has some earlier flowers as opposed to just fruit. But this should give you an idea. You saw, going back to IDigBio, that there are many images of Rippa sessiliflora from which to choose. The list just goes on. Our next strategy to find images is to go to Google and go directly to Google Images. So if you know the website for this, that's fine. If not, just Google Images. And then you can type in the species name, Rippa sessiliflora. And we'll get a lot of images, but most of them will be copyrighted. So our next step is to choose Tools, Usage Rates, labeled for non-commercial reuse. What we see here is that none have this label. This does not mean that none are available. There may be images not under copyright, but Google simply doesn't know this. So let's go back to Not Filtered by License and look at the images. What we're going to look for are images that come from government websites or perhaps ones associated with Wikimedia already. And so this second one over is from the state of Minnesota. That might not be copyrighted. If we go over to the usgs.gov, this presumably is not copyrighted because this is a federal government agency. Let's check. So here is that image. You can see it's a high quality image. You can see it occurs in a larger size. You can also see a photo credit, Larry Alane, U.S. Geological Survey. So this is on a U.S. government website, and it was photographed by an employee of the U.S. government, which means it is probably not copyrighted. To check this, I have simply gone to Google and typed USGS photo library copyright. And here is the link I get. Clicking it, it tells us immediately that USGS authored or produced data are considered to be in the public domain. Therefore, this would be an image that is fair use on Wikipedia. I would still give the photographer credit, whether or not that is legally required in this case, and I would give a citation for this image. So some directions for doing this are on the second page of your handout. The rest of this handout covers specifics of the assignment that I will not try to talk about in this video. To just remind you what we have talked about in this video, I showed you several different sources where you can find information about your species, including eFlora's, Google Scholar, JSTOR, Web of Science, and the library catalog. I also showed you 3 different places where you may find images, including IDigBio, USDA Plants, and a Google search, then looking for non-copyrighted images. Once you assemble information about your species, your next step will be to actually write the information in your own words and probably to build that on your sandbox page on Wikipedia. As you do that, make sure that you include references to the material that you are using so you do not need to go back at the end to try to relocate that information. And we'll talk more about writing your articles in a subsequent lesson.